Hello, it is Thursday, the 20th of February. I'm Joe, he's Ollie, and this is the Premier Live podcast.
And today, we're going to be talking about the successes of Liverpool and Sheffield United, the Man City Champions League ban, and fans' criticism, and how that affects the team.
As well as loads of your correspondence. Okay, so Ollie, week of Champions League, it's been back. Personally for me, I love the Champions League. What do you think of it?
I think it's an absolutely brilliant competition and allows teams who maybe aren't doing so well to come up against the giants of different leagues and potentially even take them down.
Well, yeah, the thing I love most about it is the fact that you have that whole thing of two different cultures of football facing against each other. So obviously last night we had the Tottenham-Leipzig game, which I watched. Leipzig was just on the front foot all the time. And they didn't give Tottenham a second on the ball. They're always on them. Not a single second Tottenham got on the ball. They were rushed to play, they had to play it long. And especially that start from Leipzig, having 3 shots in the first 2 minutes, sorry. And it was amazing. I really enjoyed watching them play, especially with Julian Nagelsmann, 32. It's unbelievable to think that he's only 32 years old and he's doing the job he's doing at Leipzig. With them just 1 point off top in the Bundesliga. It's amazing, I think. Atalanta last night, winning 4-1 against Valencia. That's their first ever knockout game, that is. Atletico Madrid obviously beating Premier League leaders Liverpool. And that Dortmund PSG game, 3 goals in 8 minutes, Erling Braut Haaland, he was just amazing, that game. He's already scored 10 Champions League goals this season.
Yeah, no, and he's actually scored more than Mbappe as well.
Yeah.
It's been absolutely wonderful for the teenage striker. I think he's got a long, long way to go in his career.
Yeah, it was at 19 as well. I think he scored more goals than Eden Hazard in the Champions League or something like that.
Yeah, no, it's very impressive. I think Dortmund have really got themselves a steal there.
Yeah, and then also there's Leipzig 1 point off the top. It's really heating up in the Bundesliga title race, as we've just got it up here. From Bayer Leverkusen in 5th to Bayern Munich in 1st, it's 6 points. Even from Mönchengladbach in 4th to Bayern in 1st, it's 4 points, and Mönchengladbach have a game in hand. And Leipzig obviously doing amazing under Nagelsmann. His first season in charge, 32. It's amazing. You wouldn't have thought that.
No, most definitely. As I said about Dortmund, having an absolute steal with the players that they've got. They brought in Thorgan Hazard,
Yeah.
Eden Hazard's brother, and
Nico Schultz.
yeah. Did they bring in Julian Brandt?
Yeah.
Yeah, they also brought in Julian Brandt for the right wing, which is
amazing player. He is.
absolutely amazing. And of course, the main man, Haaland.
That was only 19 million euros, I think, on his release clause.
No, it's something spectacular there.
Yeah, he is a very, very good player for sure. But just quickly before we go on to Liverpool's success, obviously they took a loss against Atletico Madrid, and I think that is quite impressive for Atletico Madrid. And the way they played as well was absolutely amazing. I don't know if you saw, but from their goal that they scored from their corner, they had 4 players compared to Liverpool's 8 in their box, and they had 4 players outside the box scattered around the D there to stop the counter-attack from Liverpool, which I thought was amazing by Simeone.
I think Diego Simeone is a very good and intelligent tactical manager. If you see the games that he has, been in charge of, he's done something wonderful. And with the loss of Griezmann as well to Barcelona, and he's doing very well. But I think with them bringing in João Felix as well, up and coming youngster, potentially one of the best in the world at some point. The success of Ronaldo.
Yeah, it's amazing, really. I think he'll be a very good fit at Manchester United, Diego Simeone, as well as a number of managers. But we're going to get on to Manchester United later on. But I think we're going to move on to Liverpool now. So moving on to Liverpool now, obviously they've been amazing in the Premier League this season. Only dropped points in 1 game and are still unbeaten. And that draw was against Manchester United. That's amazing.
Yes, but do you think they've actually been amazing?
Well,
or is it the fact that everyone else hasn't been amazing.
On that, you see, I saw this on a tweet this morning, but I think Liverpool have been outstanding this season. Like, to then, because you're playing the likes of Manchester City, I think they played them twice, not entirely sure, once, but still, to beat them 3-1 was amazing. And then to also, I think they've just been amazing this year, I can't lie.
They have been very good, I will admit that, but you do see the game of Liverpool against Manchester City, and that first goal where they kicked it in and Aguero was waving his hands about, and if you saw the replay, it did in fact hit his arm.
Yeah, I mean, I think VAR has come to their help this year.
Yeah.
Oh, we're not going to dive into VAR too much.
No.
We're going to try and keep this a VAR-free zone. But also here on my notes,
Liverpool.
I had that in 2019, not just this season, but in the whole of 2019, they lost just 4 games. And I think Chris Wilder at Sheffield United did an amazing job when they played at Liverpool. It took the game to them. And I think the main part of Liverpool's play is they try to use the central areas to start to build up the play with the likes of Jordan Henderson and Gigi Wijnaldum, with Fabinho in there as well. So you need to congest the middle to try and force them out wide. And Wilder did this in a 5-3-2 shape, with the strikers dropping back. And I just think that was amazing there. And they really took the game to Liverpool. And we'll be moving on to Sheffield United success a bit later on. But I just wanted to know what you thought about that game in general and the way Liverpool have been this season.
So, Liverpool's last, 10 games has been a 1-0 loss, a 1-0 victory, 1-0 victory, 4-0 victory, 2-0 victory, 2-2
And
with
that was in
Shrewsbury.
the FA Cup.
Yeah. 2-1 against Wolves, 2-0 against United, 1-0 against Tottenham, 1-0 against Everton in the Cup, 2-0 against Sheffield United, 1-0 against Wolves, 4-0 against Leicester, 1-0 against Flamengo,
And that was in the Club World Cup, obviously.
2-1 against Monterrey, lost 5-0 to Villa in the League Cup.
Well, that's when they played the youth team, though.
Yeah. Liverpool 2, Watford 0. And you do see a pattern.
Yeah.
It does, slowly get a bit worse in a way. They are winning more games 1-0, 1-0, 1-0, 1-0.
Or by 1 goal.
Yeah.
Looks at this.
Instead of, say, Manchester City, who last season were winning different games like an absolute bunch. You know?
Obviously, against Watford earlier on the season, it was like 8-0 or something, wasn't it?
Against Stoke as well. The season before, it was 7-2.
Yeah.
And they just don't give up.
Yeah,
That's
when
the
they
thing.
win, they tend to win games by a bigger margin, I think.
Yeah.
But anyway,
No, definitely.
if we go back to Liverpool this season, they've made 15,332 passes, which is averaging 613 passes per game, which I think is very good, and that's the second most in the league. And you have Virgil van Dijk, who's made 2,051, Trent Alexander-Arnold, 1,708, and Andy Robertson, 1,687. All 3 of those are in the top 4 players with the most amount of completed passes, with only Brighton's Lewis Dunk completing 1,692 passes, and he's the only player in between them. So I think the way Liverpool have done this year is amazing, really, and they're working it out from the back as well.
They're doing very well. You can tell that many attacking managers work out from the back. And I think the addition of the goalkeepers being able to, pass inside their box
have the ability
from
with their
goal
feet.
kicks is quite amazing.
Yeah, and also they sit third in shots taken with 389, which is still quite a lot of amount of shots, but it shows that they really work it. They really work it up the pitch from the back. And then also you have the keepers at the end of the pitch, having Alisson and Adrian, and they've made, I think that's 56 saves between them or something like that. And then that also gives credit to their defence, that shows that even though Virgil van Dijk maybe not have been as good as last season, but he's still been amazing this year.
Oh yeah, no, most definitely. But I also think people talking about Joe Gomez being
Yeah.
one of the best in the league. I don't
Yeah.
think so.
Really?
Honestly,
No,
I really don't think so.
no, I mean they've looked more assured at the back with him over Joel Matip, I think. But I think with people saying he's one of the best in the league, you've still got players like Aymeric Laporte to go in front of him. Toby Alderweireld, debatably. But I think there are a lot more composed, experienced centre-backs out there. And I think for Liverpool, really, in the summer, they should look to strengthen their centre-backs as well. Joe Gomez is still young.
Mm. And again, many people saying he's the best England centre back.
Yeah.
And really, the only reason Liverpool are doing so well with him at the back is because they've got Virgil van Dijk.
Really?
But without Van Dijk, I promise you, they won't do as well.
Yeah,
we saw
without
that
Van Dijk.
against Leipzig
Yeah.
when they didn't have Van Dijk, how poor they actually were, and that to bring on stronger players to eventually win the game, but he wasn't good at all.
Well, I mean, he has assured their defence Van Dijk, but then also they've got they're averaging 15.56 shots per 90, which is a mad amount of number, and then also you just said just now that they're averaging, I think it's 2.92 points per game or something stupid like that. And that's mental in itself. And also they've added a Minamino in January. So what do you think of that signing and how he's going to help them?
I don't think it'll help them much. I don't think he fits into their system, as I think many of the fans would like him to.
Yeah, I agree, because like this season for Leipzig, he's really striven and performed under their 4-4-2 with a diamond, and him playing at the 10 with Salzburg this year, Minamino. And that's not how Liverpool played. They tend to play in a 4-3-3 with Henderson or Fabinho, the sitting midfielder, and that's too defensive for him. The only way I can really see him coming in is Klopp rotating him with Salah, Mane and Firmino, because he can play anywhere across that front line. I just think that's the best way for him to fit in when Klopp's maybe resting them for Champions League.
Yeah, no, most definitely. I think I don't think that they'll get the best out of him though. I think if he goes to a different team, maybe a bit lower, they could potentially, get the best out of him.
Yeah,
And he could really thrive.
I think he would be a good fit. A club like Everton, with Gylfi Sigurdsson aging a bit. I think he's like 27, 28 now, or something like that. He's aging a bit. I think if you add him in, then if you put him in there, because they play with Sigurdsson at the point as well. Yeah, he's 30 now. So with him aging, he's going to start to tire soon and won't be able to play every single match like he's doing now. If you get Minamino in, yeah, obviously it's from their rivals, but I think he could really thrive at Everton.
Oh yeah, no, most definitely. And only being 25 isn't bad at all.
Yeah. And like, he's not even in his prime yet, and he's averaging about, I think, here it says, averaging about 1.8 goal contributions per 90 he plays. I find that's very good for him.
Yeah, no, most definitely. But I also think that someone like Adam Lallana will need to be replaced.
I mean, he's
soon.
been linked with Leicester over the past couple of days.
And I think
Sky
he might
Sports.
be able to fit in quite well there.
Yeah.
Because he is 31 years old, and who'll they use to replace him? Most likely Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain.
Yeah, he's had his injury issues, but he is a very good player. I mean, I think he scores about 3 or 4 of Liverpool's 7 outside of the box goals this season. They have scored most of their goals inside the box, which shows to the work of like Bobby Firmino trying to pick up the scraps that are left inside the box, and I think that's something he's really good at, Roberto Firmino.
Yeah, I also think he can be in the right place at the right time sometimes. When these balls from Salah, Mane, Henderson, everyone else, when they come in.
Yeah. I mean, obviously what they've done is amazing this year, and we've got a correspondence question about Liverpool for later on But I think we'll come back to that question later on when we do the correspondence. But I do think that they're going to win the league very early on this year, and they'll focus on the Champions League. So I think they can win it against Crystal Palace in about 5 or 6 weeks' time. I think it is. They can actually win the league, and because of Manchester United result against Chelsea the other day, I think that it now means Liverpool have already qualified for the Champions League next season, and that is just amazing after 26 match weeks.
Yeah, no, they are 22 points ahead of second place Manchester City.
And I saw something the other day, and that those 22 points between first and second in the Premier League is the same amount as first place and 20th place in the Championship.
No, they in 12 games, the most points you can get is 36, and the difference between 5th place Tottenham and top of Liverpool is exactly 36 points. They've, already got themselves a Europa League spot.
Yeah, and they just need to better Tottenham's result, or just get a win at the weekend, and then they're there, Champions League next season. And just something I want to point out before we move on to Sheffield United is Mo Salah, Sadio Mane and Bobby Firmino. Those three have scored over 50% of Liverpool's goals this season, which I think is amazing, just between those three combined.
Yeah, no, that's only 50% of it. They've scored, 61 goals?
61 goals
this season? So that's 30 between them, which is about 10 goals a player.
Yeah, Salah's got 14, Mane 11, and Firmino only 8 Firmino this season.
Yeah, no, and we saw it last year. That Firmino wasn't necessarily the best man for the job.
Yeah.
He doesn't always score, but I know I'm going to get criticised for this. I don't think he is world class.
I think he's a good player.
He's a good player, but I don't think he's world class. I think that Liverpool could do so much better than him.
I mean, they've been rumoured with Timo Werner. Just imagine if they get him in as well, on top of having Minamino as backup, and possibly still even Firmino there at the club with Salah and Mane on the wings.
Yeah, I know.
That's just...
they could potentially take the world by storm.
Definitely. I mean, they're already world champions.
Yeah, no, the Club World Cup, yeah.
I mean, sometimes though, we've just been talking about Liverpool passing out from the back, but Man City have attempted 399 at the time of recording, 399 less long balls over the top than Liverpool. So Liverpool do sometimes rely on the pace of Salah, Mane and Firmino when playing a long ball over the top, whether that's from Alexander-Arnold, Van Dijk. He's really good at playing long balls over the top.
Yeah, I know. Going back to Firmino, last season he only got 12 goals. That is less than Glenn Murray, who's 38?
He's 35 last season.
Same thing. Richarlison, Gylfi Sigurdsson,
Paul Pogba,
Jimenez, Lacazette, even Callum Wilson.
Yeah.
Harry Kane too, who was injured for a lot of the season. So it is quite interesting to see, who's really, better than him.
Better than him, yeah. I think if they do get Timo Werner next season, it'll be a very good addition to the squad, personally.
Yeah.
I mean, he's just, he is a very good player. Don't get me wrong, he is a very good player, but I think Liverpool just could do a bit better than him. Obviously, he's ageing a bit now for me as well, I think. Not that old, but you have the younger talents, such as Timo Werner, who we've already mentioned. And you also have players like... You have some players who you could get in, like they've lost out on Steven Bergwijn. He looks I think they could have gone for Steven Bergwijn. He would fit in their system, and I think he looks very exciting.
Yeah,
for Spurs.
No, most definitely. See, Firmino this season has the same amount of goals as De Bruyne. Less than Richarlison again. Martial, Jesus and Son Chris Wood of Burnley has got more than them. DCL, Timu Pukki, Tammy Abraham as well. Danny Ings too.
Danny Ings, but he's been on fire this season. Danny Ings.
Most definitely. He is the third top goal scorer in the league, so it's not necessarily that, amazing.
Yeah, he's been very good. Well, anyway, so obviously, as we just summed it up there, that everyone's really been saying it, Liverpool have been amazing this season, but now we're going to delve into the successes of Sheffield United.
Now it's time to talk about Sheffield United, who are, in fact, sixth in the league, which is very, very impressive.
Yeah, they've been very good this season. I mean, Chris Wilder, what a job he's done. He's brought the club from relegation threatened in League One to the Premier League in 3 or 4 seasons, I think it is. Which is just amazing, really, for a club like Sheffield United to be where they are in the Premier League. And obviously, Manchester City's Champions League ban, which we're going to move on to a bit later, could mean that Sheffield United will be playing Champions League football next season. Like, what an achievement that is.
They are only 1 point behind Spurs in 5th, which will be the team getting the Champions League football if City don't, win the
battle
against UEFA.
Yeah, I mean, I've been looking at their stats this season, and they're really a team that sit back and defend and then hit on the counter. Like, they have their underlapping centre backs, which I think is very good for me, with their centre backs then playing on the wings, which gives them more options in the middle of the box, which causes defences problems. But they have only scored 28 goals this season, and David McGoldrick is their top goal scorer.
Yeah.
With David McGoldrick and Lisa Mousset are their top goal scorers, which I think is quite worrying for them.
Yeah, no, most definitely. I think they've got 5 each of them.
Yeah, I think so. It's around 4 or 5.
And they are sitting pretty in 6th.
Only 28 goals scored though.
But again, this does kind of show how bad everyone else has been this season.
But then it also does show how dangerous they are on the break as well.
Yeah, no, most definitely.
They sit back, and that lures opposition to bring players forward, and then when those opposition players are forward, then they're stuffed basically. So then Sheffield United get the ball, and they're up the pitch straight away and then they score with crosses, cutbacks. They're their favoured ways of putting balls into the box. I mean, they've only taken 263 shots this season, which is 10.1 shots per game.
Yeah, no, and I want to remind you that at the beginning of the season, they were favourites to become last.
Yeah, exactly. It just shows what a job they've done.
Yeah, no, they're doing a lot better than
Norwich.
The other promotion or promoted teams, Aston Villa and Norwich.
Yeah, I mean, they've done an amazing job, but then also they scored less goals than Aston Villa, West Ham, Brighton, and they've only completed 10,186 passes, which put them behind the likes of Norwich, who have completed 11,610, and Brighton, who have got 13,474. So they do have less of the ball in the game, but it shows that they take their chances.
Yeah, no, most definitely. But to be fair, Brighton have got their new manager, very attacking manager, who likes to play passing play, likes to keep the ball a lot. I think Sheffield United have done well, though.
Yeah, they have.
With what they've got as well. They didn't really make many big signings in the January transfer window, and I think
Sander Berge and Restos from Genk and Bayer Leverkusen, respectively.
They didn't do much in the summer transfer either.
Yeah,
and I think that was because they thought they was going to go down straight away.
Yeah,
so there's not really any point in bringing up these players just to go back down, whereas they haven't, and I think they've done that well there, because that means that team from the Championship, really, who's stuck together and they know how each other play and everything, how they stuck together and gone into the Premier League like that,
Yeah.
meaning that they sort of like gelled a season before
Yeah.
all of it happened. Whereas you see someone like Aston Villa, who are sitting in 17th, if I'm correct, they made, was it 17 signings in
Yeah, I think so.
the summer?
I mean, you saw the same with Fulham last season. They went down after making, it was something like £100 million worth of signings. The main aim is when you go up to the Premier League is to keep those core group of players together, already gelled, already know the style of play, they're used to what they do, and they stick together, and they move up the table together.
Yeah, no, most definitely. You've seen it, you know, with these teams, but I think one that kind of goes against that a bit is Wolves,
Yeah.
who you know, brought in quite a few new players and
Yeah, mostly
Gone up
from
the
Portugal.
table
Well,
quite
I mean,
well.
they're all Portuguese though. Most of the players they brought in, so I don't know whether they've had some sort of connections before. So maybe that they've already gelled. They've got a Portuguese manager in Nuno Espirito Santo.
which I think has, you know, affected their signings a bit. But you also see Norwich, who didn't necessarily
Didn't
make
do
many
anyone,
signings, and they are rock bottom of the Premier League. So
Yeah,
you know, it doesn't necessarily always work, but
yeah.
it's usually best.
I mean, it's the point where Sheffield United did it, where they did enough business, where they bought some players in, but then they also kept their main core group of players, whereas Norwich just didn't bring anyone in at all, really.
No, exactly. I think they did have more of a championship squad instead of maybe a premiership squad. And you see likes of Ollie Norwood, who at the start of the season was on loan from Brighton,
Yeah.
and how he went up with Sheffield United, Fulham and Brighton all in the course of 3 seasons.
Yeah, and he's definitely one that Brighton let slip.
Oh yeah, no, most definitely.
Ollie Norwood.
I think he could have done very well at any team, really.
Yeah. He's a very good central midfielder.
Mm.
And also, like, they've only won 10 games this season. Well, like, in return, you have teams like Norwich and, well, Brighton, for example. Take them, they've won 6 or 7 games. You have some teams down low that have only won 6 or 7 games. So they haven't really won that much.
No, I think they've drawn quite a few though,
Yeah.
and they've lost very few.
Yeah, they have. I mean, that's credit to Dean Henderson in goal. I think that was a big boost for them
Oh yeah,
to
no,
keep
exactly.
Dean Henderson in between the sticks this year.
I think they've done very well bringing him in.
Obviously, Manchester United saying they're going to take him back at the end of the season, but I've also seen that they're looking to sell him on, Dean Henderson, but then have a buyback clause of about £30 million in there, which I think is quite interesting because they obviously still want him to be their number one in the future.
Yeah, no, I think Dean Henderson could potentially be one of England's top goalkeepers. Better than, you know, prime Joe Hart even, and let's be honest, he was very good
Yeah.
for Manchester City. Won the title with them in 2012.
Yeah, well, I mean, you have the debate going on now, even whether Dean Henderson should start ahead of Jordan Pickford at the Euros, which I don't agree with,
No.
because Pickford has the experience. Dean Henderson's never been on a senior international tournament before, never even had an England cap. So I think Jordan Pickford should stay there as England's number one, but Dean Henderson's made 65 saves this season, which I think is a testament to their defensive work.
Yeah, no, exactly. I think their defence isn't necessarily the greatest, but I think, you know, with the money coming in from being what, round about in that top half of the table, they will get so much.
Yeah, and I think they are going to be a very good club in the future.
I think they could be pushing for the title in about 3 years,
I think-
honestly.
I think it'll be a bit longer than that. I'd say about 7 or 8 years until they're pushing for the title, because they're going to need to concentrate on Champions League and Europa League and everything. But I do really think that they will become a force to be reckoned with in the future.
Oh yeah, no, exactly. But then you'll see what happened to, say, Manchester City, Liverpool, Chelsea, Manchester United, Arsenal, all the big teams, how they had to start to rebuild
Yeah.
due to the fact that their players got old.
Yeah, well, I mean, just before we move on to the news about Man City's Champions League ban, there's a question that I've been thinking about, but which is, would they be where they are now if other teams such as Arsenal and Man United hadn't been so bad this season?
I'm not sure. If you I don't think so.
Because then also had the likes of Chelsea and Tottenham who have been awful this season as well compared to what they're used to.
I think Tottenham bringing in Mourinho was probably the right decision.
I don't think it was. I think it was a mistake by Tottenham.
That's interesting because I really don't. I think they've done well bringing him in.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good big appointment, but I still think that they should have given Pochettino some more time. Because if Pochettino had the funds that Mourinho has had, because you've seen straight away, Mourinho's been able to bring in Gedson Fernandes, sign Lo Celso on a permanent, getting Steven Bergwijn. Mauricio Pochettino, though, he had less in net spend at Tottenham than he did when he was with Southampton.
Yeah, no, I think it was also due to the fact that the chairman didn't necessarily trust him with the funds as well.
Yeah.
Because you don't know what could have happened, before, how he could have been saying, oh, I want this player for 100 million, this player for 100 million. Really, you
as a
don't
club
know.
like Tottenham, though, should they be looking at the players who are valued around between 50 and 100 million? Because obviously they're a big club these days, and they have been for a while. And should they really be looking for players who are around that level, like how Liverpool are interested in Timo Werner, like how Man City have bought in Kevin De Bruyne? Like, even then he wasn't that good, but should they be looking for players who have performed well in the last couple of seasons they couldn't necessarily get for cheaper, but you're still assured that they will do a job? Like, I think they've relied on Harry Kane too much. I think they need to get another striker in. I don't think Harry Kane has done as well as he could have been in the last couple of seasons. Pochettino didn't have the funds, and they've rushed him back from injury a lot.
Yeah, no, exactly. I do wonder though, because you see Spurs bringing in Dele Alli a few seasons ago, bringing him up from MK Dons number 10 to one of the best England CAMs right now. And lots of the players that they've brought in recently have been younger, like Sessegnon. Bergwijn's still quite young. Lo Celso's still quite young.
And Dembele.
And Dombele's very young. I think he's 21.
Ryan Sessegnon as well, one for the future.
I
But
still
also,
think he's quite immature though.
But also with Jan Vertonghen, his contract running out, you've got Davinson Sanchez.
He's what, 26?
Yeah, but
27?
do you need another centre back like Dale Upamecano? I think they need to have players like that, and then that will then stop Sheffield United, because I think Sheffield United won't be able to attract as well as the other big teams such as Manchester United, Chelsea, Man City, Liverpool. They won't be able to attract that talent because they're a smaller club than them realistically. Got to think about it that way. It's about the players actually being attracted to joining that club and playing football for them.
Yeah, no, exactly. That's why see teams at the bottom like Norwich, how they can't necessarily bring in all the players that they want due to where they are.
Yeah.
As well. I think if Sheffield United hadn't been, as close to the top as they were,
Yeah.
I don't think someone like Sander Berge would have signed for
Yeah.
them.
Because I mean, he rejected Brighton a few times, and look at where they are. They're in the relegation scrap.
And if you want to remind you of Leandro Trossard, who did join Brighton, he said that he wouldn't have joined if it was under the former Chris Hughton, who played very defensively.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think you do need to look teams like Tottenham and teams who are around Tottenham's level who haven't been performing so well this season. I think Genk and Ajax are the teams you need to look at, because they produce some really good young talents. You have Wilfred Ndidi, Kevin De Bruyne, Leandro Trossard, Sander Berge, they've all come from Genk. So I think if teams look at maybe some younger players who have performed well to then bring up, I think that Sheffield United will be stopped.
Oh yeah, no, most definitely. I think teams don't necessarily know how to stop them as such, mainly due to the fact that they really have had more championship players, and obviously the championship's a very, very different league to the Premiership.
It's more competitive.
Yeah, and more aggressive, whereas the Premier League's faster and probably less aggressive.
Yeah, so on that note, going to move on to talking about Manchester City's Champions League ban. Okay, so moving on to Manchester City's Champions League ban now. Obviously that is some big news for them, and Pep has said that he is definitely going to stay until the end of his contract, even if they're in League 2, which there have been rumours of, but I don't think that's going to come true. And personally for me, I don't think that 5th place in the Premier League will get Champions League football this season.
I don't think so, because you see how much money Manchester City do have. They will pay millions upon millions upon millions for the best lawyers in the world, you know, to fight against UEFA to get, you know, their ban uplifted. Because, you know, obviously they want to play in Europe, winning England. They've done it 3 times in the last decade. It's not like it's anything really special to them anymore. They've, you know, basically
No, that's why they bought Pep
done
in,
what they
though.
could.
That's why they bought Pep in, though, to win the Champions League. They haven't won it in ages.
No, exactly. And you see, Juventus been talking about bringing in Pep Guardiola, so they can, you know, finally win the Champions League after so many years. But the last time he won the Champions League was over a decade ago with Barcelona.
Yeah, exactly. And then, like, also you have... the reason I don't think it's going to be 5th place as well, is I think it's still going to be such a long process to get all the evidence together and everything like that. I think it's going to be such a long process that maybe it'll be suspended and they'll get into the Champions League next season. But I think it could be one of those things that take like 6 to 12 months. And obviously it's going to cause problems for teams like Manchester United and Tottenham, because they might not know whether they're in there or not until August, mid-August. And that's not going to help them attract the calibre of players they will need to A, get into the Champions League and be successful in there, or B, just to attract the players they need, and they then won't have enough time to settle in and be used to the system. So I think that could be a problem, and I think that ban could be suspended.
No, I think also because of how big Manchester City are, it could, you know, they'll potentially be worried, UEFA, that one of the biggest teams in the world really sort of have something against them.
Yeah, well, I mean, it could be... Sorry for interrupting you there, but I mean, it could be the point where Man City start to then play friendlies with bigger clubs all over the world, like they would be playing in the Champions League, and then they'll be getting a shed load of money from it, and then teams start thinking, hello, they're making a lot of money from this, potentially more than we're making from playing in the Champions League. So I think that could be a factor as well that will then affect teams in the Champions League and playing as well as they do and prioritising the Champions League as much as they do.
Yeah, no, most definitely. Because the thing is, though, is if something like that does happen, Manchester City could quite easily stop the Champions League completely. Because if you know, make so much money from not even playing in the Champions League, but by doing friendlies, that mean more teams will want to really, you know, not be in the Champions League.
Yeah, if they're making more money.
As such, but, you know, potentially even pull out of the Champions League just so they can do like the friendlies like Manchester City do. And it could be potentially devastating for UEFA.
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously you still have the Europa League going, but I do think that what Man City do they need to be careful with what they're doing in the future as well. Because I've heard that they're doing it between the funds and the transfers they brought in between 2012 and 2016. So it's not even like they've been doing it recently. It's just been from that amount of time.
And if I'm correct, when Chelsea got their transfer ban actually for bringing in young players or whatever, lots of them were talking about how City had been doing the same sort of thing, but it never, been looked at. And then here we are.
Yeah, with FFP this time.
Probably something worse.
I mean, I do like the FFP rule though, because it then means that it helps teams lower down in the table. Because teams like Man City can't go and spend, for example, 200 million on Mbappe, Neymar, and Suarez, for example, spend 200 million on each of them in one transfer window, and then not get rid of anyone, because then you're breaking in FFP. You'll then have to probably sell about £100 million worth of players. So for every transfer you make, you have the consequence having to maybe risk selling a bigger player or something like that, which is what I quite like. So teams don't just completely overpower and dominate the leagues.
No, exactly. And talking about the financial fair play, Aston Villa.
Yeah, they were rumoured to be in trouble with it.
And in January, there was meant to be selling players.
Yeah.
But instead, they brought in another, 4 players?
Yeah, I think so.
And I really think that they'll be lucky if they get away with it.
Yeah, I
really
think they need to be careful with what they do. Because they brought in a load of players, as you said earlier on, in the summer, but they didn't necessarily sell anyone either.
No.
I think they need to be very careful with what they're doing and the business they do now, Aston Villa.
Yeah,
I think FFP could potentially change the whole game, but I like that though.
I think they would maybe even be forced to sell Wesley, Jack Grealish, Tom Heaton, so on and so forth. And I think Jack Grealish goes Spurs, as we said in the last time. That they Spurs bring in youngsters.
Yeah, and that's why I think financial fair play as well comes in and helps Championship clubs as well, really. Because when they go down, they're then going to sell a whole load of players. They'll sell loads and loads of players. For example, if Aston Villa go down, it will help them. Because they'll then sell a good 100 to 150 million worth in players, maybe even a bit more, and only probably spend about 50 million of it in the Championship. And that will help them when they go back up, because FFP accumulates over a certain amount of seasons where you have to sell a certain amount of money for players and for what you bring in. So I think it's almost going to be handy if they go down.
And that's something to do with West Ham as well. If they go down, they'll sell absolutely tons of players, but I think they could potentially be liquidised if they go down.
Do you think?
Yeah, because of how much debt they're in right now.
Yeah.
The money from the Premier League is very good, and obviously sitting a point away from safety.
It would be sad if West Ham do end up having to be liquidised. But
one of the most historical clubs, really, in England.
Yeah.
But
it's the price you have to pay though.
Yeah.
So if they spent £20 million on Jarrod Bowen on transfer deadline day, and I think he's earning around £80,000 a week, £60,000 to £80,000 a week, and that's mental. Like, they'll have to sell him on definitely, because you can't have a player who's playing on £60,000 to £80,000 a week. And also, I went to the Brighton Chelsea game at the Amex in January, and my uncle's mate was saying that at West Brom, it sounds like they do it really well when they're in the Premier League. They said for every single player that's signed, in their contract they had a clause that if they go down, their wage is half. So Ben Foster was on 80k at West Brom, I think it was. They went down, his wage went to £40,000 a week, £35,000 a week, I think he said.
Obviously, he didn't
and
like
then
that.
That's why he said he had to leave, because apparently he couldn't live on that amount of money per week. But I mean, I think that was a very good way of doing it. So you're guaranteed that your players well then your wages will go down and you'll have like an average championship wage bill.
No, exactly. I think that should be a clause put into every contract, and potentially even made official by the Premier League.
Yeah, because then that's where you see clubs starting to fall. So you see like Sunderland, they're down in League One now after a few seasons from getting relegated in the Prem. Went down first season in the Championship, and that's because they had to sell a lot of their players after then having a lot of players on
high wages
from the Premier League.
And it's kind of like Blackpool as well. Not long ago, they were in the Premier League.
Yeah.
No, obviously came down, went to the Championship, stayed there a few seasons, went down to League One and straight down to League Two.
Yeah, I mean,
Now, if I'm correct, they're still in League Two.
No, League One, I think.
Yeah, but still, they were, quite high up in the, Premier League. And same with the Blackburn too.
Yeah, well, finally, before we move on to the final main talking point, I think Bolton is one of the main clubs and more notable clubs that have been affected by not having FFP around when they're in the Prem, because obviously they went down to the Championship, down to League One, down to League Two, and they've been yo-yoing up and down those leagues. This season going to go back down to League Two, but that's because of financial fair play. They almost weren't a club anymore. I mean, you could put that down to the ownership a bit, but also I think it's a fact that they had to sell loads of their players, but they've still got a reputation of being a big club, so they're signing maybe some bigger players than other League One clubs, but they would have been on higher wages, which is another reason why they could have almost not been a football club anymore.
Now, big talking point, fan criticism and what effect it has on the players, on the teams, on the managers. And we've seen it with Manchester United, how their fans keep whining.
I mean, we were talking about this before we came on air as well. Brighton, obviously, personally, as being a Brighton fan and seeing what's going on around the club, we have such a toxic fan base.
It's plastic as well, It's the same with quite a lot of Liverpool. It's their stadium is packed with tourists, really, because of how big a club they actually are. It's really just packed with tourists, and then that means that the real die-hard fans can't necessarily get in, and that's what happens when you come up to the Premier League. That's the price you have to pay when you say Norwich, Wolves, Manchester City, Sheffield United. It all happens. Tourists will come and they'll just watch the games in there because they're in the Premier League. They're in the top league in most likely the world, and those fans who are there since League Two can't get in anymore.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think one of the main ones this season that probably maybe have given Southampton a boost is after that 9-0 defeat to Leicester. Like you had some fans at the bottom. So basically, after that game, which you didn't know already, all the Southampton managers and players forked out their wages for that week and gave it to the Southampton charity, their football club's charity. But then in the comments of that tweet, you had some fans saying, "Oh, where's my refund? Refund ? And like, that's just disgraceful. You can't ever ask for a refund from a football club.
No.
But then also you had some other people commenting, "Oh, I think it's good they've gone to the charity." But still, you can't ever ask for a refund. Like, you hear some football clubs doing it and you're like, "Oh, that's a good gesture." But you just can't ever ask for one, really.
No.
I think it's just so rude.
It's really the players that, decide on the managers as well, that decide what's going to happen. Whether they give the refund or not. They don't give the refund, so be it. They don't get a bloody refund. It doesn't necessarily matter.
Yeah, and also you have Granit Xhaka's reaction against... who was it against? I think was it Crystal Palace or something, when he stormed off down the pitch after the fans were booing him. Like, originally when he got subbed off, I think the fans were booing him because he was taking so long to actually get off the pitch. And I think that was the main issue at the beginning, so he was taking so long to get off the pitch when they probably should have been pushing for a win against a team they could have beaten. And then they increasingly got louder and louder and louder, and I think that was a straw that broke the camel's back for him. Because obviously, I think the anger had been building up inside him for weeks and weeks before. And Granit Xhaka, you know him, he gives his all every time he steps out onto that football pitch. Yes, he may not be the best player and the right player for Arsenal, but he still gives his all every time he goes out there. And that's all you can ask for as a fan. Yeah, you can say, oh, I don't really rate him, but all you can ask for is for them to go out and give their best. If their best is quite bad, then so be it. It's their best they can do. So I think that reaction had been something building up in him inside for weeks and weeks and weeks.
I think also the Emirates is such an intimidating place.
Yeah.
If you stand in the middle of the pitch and just turn round 360 quite slowly, but turn round, and you know when it's packed as well, people singing and everything. Well, I say singing. You turn round and it's so intimidating.
Yeah.
And especially if you're being booed off, it's quite, you know, could be scary.
And also there was abuse from fans on his social media, which I want to go on to in a bit later. But apparently him and his wife were getting abuse and death threats. Like, he's a footballer. They're footballers, and they may be your idol, they may be your hero, they may be the person you want to be when you grow up, but overall they're still humans. You can't just throw all the abuse that you have at him and expect him to just take it like a normal person. Or not normal person, but expect him to take it like he's some sort of superhuman. These footballers are normal people, and you can't forget that.
Oh no, exactly. You do see though that they try to hide things away, kind of like Karius, and he was like abused or whatever, and he was abused quite badly, you know, death threats as well, over Twitter, and Andy Robertson as well. He was, you know, by these Liverpool fans who, you know, you'll never walk alone. The ones who use that all the time, no matter what. They're the ones who, you know, really were making them feel this way. You know, Karius was on the verge of killing himself due to this. Andy Robertson deactivated his Twitter. It's, you know, active again, but he deactivated it for time because, you know, he couldn't take it anymore. And it was because of one or two bad performances, and, you know, sometimes fan criticism can get the worst of players.
Yeah, and as you said there, he deactivated his Twitter, but that is the thing. The question is that I want to talk about and have a small debate about: is social media good for players?
Exactly. I think I don't think so. I think you see, referees aren't actually allowed to have any social media at all. And I think that should be the same with football players, because really, people will hate them.
You know what I mean? Obviously,
and, you know,
a small private account where you just have your friends and family, that's fine. But it's where people can open up their feelings to you. Like, sometimes it's really good. Sometimes it's like, oh, well played, you're really good today, keep it up. But then also it can be used as a way to form an apology to their all of the fans, or a way to show their gratefulness. But I think there is a danger of the fans' reaction.
I think also Twitter have done it quite well actually, where you can actually have words muted. So say like you could put awful, you know, bad words, which I ain't saying, but you could say awful, bad, absolutely devastating or whatever. You could have them muted or whatever, so when people say comment or whatever, you won't see them. So I think players don't think about doing that as much as they potentially could.
I mean, I do think social media can be quite bad for players, like in general, because as I just said, you get the fans that open up and they can absolutely abuse you. They can dig into you to where it hurts most. They bring like people's families into it, which I don't think is acceptable. Like with Granit Xhaka, he is getting death threats, and I just think that you can't do it. Like, it's unacceptable. It has to be, if you're going to comment on people's social media pages, as a footballer, there have to be nice, positive comments.
I know, exactly. And no matter what's happening, no matter what the argument's about, you never talk about someone's family.
Yeah.
Never. That is the number one rule of, arguing.
Yeah.
Never bring up their family.
I mean, if they're playing bad, then they play bad. It's bad run form. But that's one thing you can't do.
It's only a bad form, that's it. Never bring up a person's family when, really arguing against them and having something against them.
Yeah.
Completely.
Alright, so I think that's all we've got to say on fan criticism. And then we're going to move on to some of your correspondence. So now it's time for us to answer some of your correspondence. We've asked you to send in some questions or opinions via Instagram DM, or also we have an email, so you could email us at premierlivepodcast@gmail.com, send in some of your correspondence. So we've got one here from Dan, and he says, what do you think about Chelsea's transfer window?
This is an interesting one because, it wasn't in their transfer window, but they brought in Ziyech. And see lots of Ajax fans and, the Ajax admin on Twitter can tell they all want him, in a way to be a flop, for him to be awful at Chelsea. Because, obviously, probably I would say their best player leaving. Just another one. Frankie de Jong, the one who went to Juventus.
Barcelona.
Yeah.
De Ligt went to Juve.
Yeah, that's the one I meant. De Ligt who went to Juventus. And the other one that went to Sevilla. They, obviously lost basically the 3 Ds.
Yeah.
And they were probably the best players.
Yeah.
Obviously, Andre Onana has been linked with many different teams, including Barcelona, Everton, and I think they'd be lucky to keep him as well.
Yeah. But then also, I thought it was a weird one, that Chelsea's January transfer window, if you're talking about that in general, that they actually appealed for their ban, which got accepted. So I think everyone coming to this transfer window thought Chelsea were going to do business and thought they were going to be very, very busy in the transfer window. And I thought it was weird that they didn't sign anyone, but quickly moving on. So thank you for that question, Dan. We've got one here from Corey, and he says, who do you think will go down with Norwich?
This is an interesting one, actually. I'm not sure. Looking at the bottom 10, even, there's Arsenal on 34 points, and between them and 19th placed Watford
10 points.
is 10 points. Arsenal could go down this season.
Well, I doubt they will, but
Thing is though, is that Wolves in 8th are only 12 points off.
it's extremely tight this season.
14 points, Man United. 15 points.
I mean, there's less than 20 points. So
Sheffield United.
16 between Tottenham.
Seriously, Watford, from Watford all the way up to Man United, all they need to do is win 5 games. Sheffield United at least need to lose all those 5 games, and they're in a relegation spot.
Well, I mean, I don't think that will happen though. But
I
I
don't think it'll
realistically,
happen,
anyone from Watford down in 19th with 24 points up to Palace in 14th with 30 points could realistically go down. But if you want me to give you 2 teams that I think will go down, I think it will be Aston Villa and Watford.
Yeah, I think I agree with Aston Villa, but if you have a look at all of Watford, over, since the new manager's come in, they've done very well. Scored quite a few goals, won a lot more games than they had, obviously coming off a bottom place. I think neither team in the bottom 2 are going to go down. I think West Ham will be safe, and I think Watford will be safe.
So who do you think is going to win them?
I think it'll be Aston Villa and Bournemouth.
Bournemouth is a good one. A shout, I think.
I think, Eddie Howe's done an amazing job at Bournemouth over the last few years, and, obviously bringing them up from League One to the Championship straight to the Premier League. they done very well,
Yeah.
obviously.
Also had their injury problems this year.
Yeah, no, and they do have their injury problems most years. And you know, that's obviously the issue.
Yeah.
Is that they just can't, you know, get anywhere without having players injured.
Yeah. And then final one before we end this is one from Ollie, and he says, "Will Liverpool go unbeaten this season?" And we spoke about this a tiny bit before. We're not in full depth, but if you want my straight up answer, I don't think they will.
I hope they won't, because that Man United team didn't,
Yeah, but
and the Man United team of 2008.
Mm.
Honestly, Liverpool had nothing on them.
I
That
mean,
Man United team of 2008 would take this league and put it in their locker.
no, I mean, personally, for me, I think once Liverpool have tied the league up, which, as we mentioned, they could do in the very near future, is that Jurgen Klopp will start prioritising the FA Cup and the Champions League over the Premier League. So I think that Liverpool team will lose one game when he starts to prioritise the Champions League.
I think he'll prioritise the Champions League after losing to Atletico Madrid away from home. I think, you know, he'll want to win the Champions League again. But Atletico, you know, obviously going in with the one-up against Liverpool, which not many teams are able to do. I think they've done very well to beat them. But, you know, obviously, Liverpool haven't actually gone